Hi, friends. Okay, been a while again. What can I say? All I can do is share with you what's real now. I'm going to share with you a journal that's from that 10 Crocodile day, the last journal I shared. This is the second one of that day. But before I do, since we're all connected energetically, I figure I'll share with you kind of where I've been in consciousness. And I want you to start looking to see how connected we are. Perhaps sometimes you go and you look to see if I've done a video, or you just have a momentary hope. You know I do this with other people. I look forward, for instance, to when Dimitri Halley uploads or something like that. When in that moment that we do that, we connect with that other person. And if we'll begin to self-observe here, just pay attention, we'll be able to tune in. Realize that you're psychic. Everyone is. Everyone practices telepathy every day of the week. You always have. You always will. We've been told that we don't. And so, once again, beliefs are at issue here. But that's okay, because we are divine. I think I've got a cat here or something. We are divine, and we get what we want. We get what we choose. And it takes some sorting through our beliefs to get rid of the ones that conflict. What I've been doing lately is two things. I went through a streak where I bet I watched almost 100 videos of Dr. Pillai, and things from his site on Vedic Astrology. His site is, he's got a number of sites, but the one on that is called Astroved.com, and I'll put some links in the written transcript. Okay, so that's been interesting. They use sidereal astrology, and so I discovered that with the, I forget what it's called now, but with the Western astrology, I've got the Capricorn sun and the Cancer moon. In sidereal astrology, it's moved over one sign, and so I have a Sagittarius sun and a Gemini moon. And I've discovered that in their astrology, the moon is far more important, although they still look at sun, moon, and ascendant. But there's more of a focus on the moon there. So all of that's interesting. Now, the thing that I've been doing most recently is, I never looked into it before. I knew it was out there, and that's the Seth material. This is what Esther's husband, Jerry, they bring through Abraham Hicks, they call him. Jerry was first introduced to the whole concept and idea of channeling by his interest in the Seth material, and at first Esther was absolutely, she rejected it. It didn't feel right to her. And so over time, we know things must have changed. I think that's clear and apparent. But anyway, I guess I'm hesitant about channeling. I don't listen to any of the, although I did for a while, the Galactic Federation stuff and so on. I like the raw material, which is also from the 70s. Now, the Seth material is from, and it might be before the raw material. I think it's from the early 70s, 72, something like that. And I'll give you a link. I didn't find an audio book for it, but I found a nice lady, Grace Butler, I think, who took the time to record in her own voice the nature of personal reality. Now, it's in little 12 to 14-minute sessions, and there's a lot of them. But I've got to share with you. There are, I don't know, more than 50 or 60 of them. But if you will listen, even as much as I have so far, which is to the first 20, you will be truly enriched in your understanding around the power of beliefs in your life and how simple they are to correct. I'm really enjoying what I'm reading. You always love to hear things that you believe from someone else's mouth. And so the bulk of what's being said here is my understanding, with one admittedly major difference. And that is that Seth is saying that our beliefs are not tucked away in the subconscious, that they are actually conscious, just not acknowledged due to the kind of beliefs that we carry. And so we can have things that are conscious and we can be unaware of them. Well, all that does, the way I see it, is up the ante on our power to change. And so I highly recommend, like I say, if you do no more than at your leisure, whenever you've got the focus to give to it, listen to the first 20 or so, the first part of this book. I think that's like the first 4 or 5 chapters. She does a pretty good job of reading. She's got a lovely accent, and the extra benefit is that on the screen she is showing you the text. So if there's a mispronunciation, it's not a problem. You can see what the word is there. So I think it's great, and I'm grateful to her for having done this. So that's kind of where I am and where I've been, the things that I've been pondering and musing on. I also, I have a new, I don't usually wear this where people can see it. I had a real small little crystal that I was using as my pendulum. And for some time I've been contemplating using this bigger one. And it's a double crystal with a little one in the middle. And so I was just working with my pendulum and asking, I've been feeling emotionally not as robust. The joy hasn't felt as accessible of late. And so I was asking, I had cut back on my use of St. John's wort. I've got a nice strong formulation. Each one of them is, I think it's like 450 milligrams. And so I had cut it back. And sure enough, the indication was to take it back up to how much I was taking and take a little more. So I have felt a little bit down emotionally. I don't let that worry me or concern me. Don't ever worry about me, okay? That doesn't do you or me any good at all. I'm fine. And actually, you're fine too. We're all more than fine. I mean, if we were all to cross over in this instant, we would discover how awesomely fine we truly are. All right? So even when I'm down, I'm not really down. It's just an ebb and a flow of things. And so I'll get to this journal now. Okay. Here's another odd one, a journal where the title came first. Let's see what else is in here to illustrate that title, which is Mind Mimics Heart. Just be aware. What I received is a quick sort of vision of how that works. For example, there are many of us who like to please other folks. Some do it because they were taught, they were brought up that way. Society tends to smile on it, to encourage it. Churches certainly do too. But what about that? What about the many people pleasers out there who are really not very happy folks. How helpful is it to them, and why or why not? What I saw was how it depended on where that urge to please, to serve others, originated, whether it came from deep within or from the mind, the training. As you might have guessed, the mind-originated urge isn't the one I choose to trust. Mind really wants to serve. It wants to serve us in its own, I wrote down, in its own rather twisted way. For in reality, mind has us serving it. And again, I've moved on from this, but I'm sharing with you what's real for the now here that this came from. Okay, so mind really wants to serve. It wants to serve us in its own rather twisted way, for in reality, mind has us serving it. Do you see how that works? How mind tends to beat up on us, berating, scolding, driving us on with endless to-do lists? I hold mind guiltless for this, by the way. That's how, how was it taught? What else should it do after all? It really does want to please. Now, until we unwind the tangle and the knots of our psyches, we'll tend to go around in rather misguided ways. Can't be helped. The scrapes mind gets us into are supposed to be that which wakes us up to the need to look into things, the need to change something, though we know not what. Scrapes are source's gentle ways of getting our attention when we're not in the heart and within reach of the still, quiet voice. So our parents were schooled in this sort of behavior before us, and they too did their best by us, teaching us what they thought, what they believed was best. Actually, according to them, they knew it was best, but we'll let that one go. The point is that they too are innocent of any wrongdoing in this coiled up mess. And it's not a mess, it's a blessing. It just needs to be seen like that. The same goes for our school teachers and later on, our professors. Everyone is giving of their best, going only by what they were taught before us. So, no one has set out to do us any intentional harm. We can even leave aside the whole rank and file of the powers that were structure for now, as it doesn't apply. They weren't our teachers. They may have designed most of the messes into society, but that doesn't matter right now. And why would that be? Simply because regardless of how it got to be that way, we are changing it. It won't be like that much longer, so the how just isn't that relevant to what we're looking at here. So we start out with, if not exactly the blank slate, then at least one where all are held equally harmless. All are equally held harmless. There is no axe to grind, no one to blame, to set out to punish for the mess we find things in. That too is pointless, when clearly what needs doing is simply to change things from the way that they are, which is quite dysfunctional, into a much better way. The more we keep our attention on now, on what now calls for, the more effective will be our efforts to bring that change. So let us settle down into heart and do what we can to remain there for the duration, or at least the duration of the journal. Beyond that, though, it's also a great possibility for a new way to live, to bring further change of the best kind. Let us get down into basic structures, to the fundaments at hand. Since Pluto is pushing, well, Pluto square Uranus is pushing against all structures. Let's take a look at ours. What have we got down there in the basement, forming the foundation of our life? What have we been hiding from ourselves by not going down there and doing our housework? Better we find out this way than some other that life brings our way. First off, it's important to remember just who we are. Neither body nor mind defines us, nor do they contain us. It turns out that we more accurately contain them and the rest of cosmos. Here's a mind pretzel for you. As awareness or consciousness, we aren't limited to the form of our body-mind avatar. Not at all. So let's plug in first off to our own divine identity. That always helps shift our perspective significantly. Knowing who we are, the next important step I see is achieving a right relationship between self and mind. The way society has mind in charge of most things, well, pretty much everything, hasn't been working. It's plain to see. What I've found more useful is to retain mind services, but more as an advisor than as a boss, which is just how things are today for most of us, being bossed around by the mind. Now, if you think that doesn't describe you, then maybe back up a few steps. It may not, but first of all, any answer that pops up in your head right away is from mind. Clearly, mind is not suitable to answer for this one, since mind itself is the subject of the inquiry, so we want to get down deeper. Let us settle down deeper within as we take another look. Self-observing is most helpful here. Have a good look at your general self-talk to start out. What is that like? What tone does it take? Is it at all loving and respectful? If it is, kudos, and you're a first. For most people, it's downright rude, even abusive. Mind won't want you to see this, won't want to admit it. But if you look from heart, it'll come more clear. The first one we've got to start being totally honest with, I think you'll agree, is the self. If we can't do that, then we have no honesty to share with anyone else, and we're just fooling ourselves. While that may have been the case, may even be the case right up to this point, there's no reason it must continue. If you say stop, then it must. Now, not right away, mind you. Sometimes our intentions take time to settle in. There's a momentum built up that has to be stopped. It's like stopping a car at 5 miles an hour versus 105, It's a different experience. Bring an earnest heart to these things, and they're pretty well guaranteed to come to pass. If not in this life, then in the next. Remember, too, your life isn't measured by the body's life here. You're eternal. Keep reminding yourself just who you are. Keep touching bases, touching down into that. Believe me, it helps with all of this. So, in order to rearrange or realign your relationship with mind, you first got to see what the current condition is. We all need to do that. Thus, the self-observation from heart, never from mind, for you'll only be tricked if you go for that. And mind will try all sorts of tricks. Just plan to enjoy them, and all will go well. After all, your mind is really smart, so you'd have to expect it to have a few tricks it tries to pull. The eventual point is to have mind in the back seat for the duration of the ride of your life in 3D. It can be a great companion and advisor, but it's time we all learn to put some of those gut and heart neurotransmitters to work, wouldn't you say? If there's a higher way to do things, then I'm all for giving it a go. Can't hurt. When I go back to the flash vision, oh well, I guess we'll get to go back to it in a moment. Okay, so when I go back to the flash vision that brought me to this journal, title in hand, it should be somewhat more clear now what I meant. Until this relationship between awareness and mind is sorted out successfully, we're really being taken for a ride by the mind. Now again, this is all unintentional. There's no other way it could have been done, considering the training and schooling we have all received and our teachers and parents and grandparents before us. So let's all get over casting blame, please. That takes us out of heart in a nanosecond, defeating the whole thing we're doing here. Let's keep love and respect for self and all very much a part of all our internal interactions as well as the external ones. It's a good guideline to follow. So, that prior education being the case, right now mind tends to run things. And that's why it's good to be suspicious of a mind wanting to be pleasing to others. Mind isn't an emotional thing. Left brain in particular is very logical and goal and action oriented. It does something to get something else or to get somewhere else, and it won't want you looking at this. Now, feel the knot in your stomach or wherever it forms as this idea enters the mind. It doesn't care at all for self-observation, for it well knows that it generally doesn't fare so well in the final analysis. It doesn't want its doings, its little tricks and ploys to be seen, even going to the extent of hiding things in the subconscious that don't need to be hidden, such as your motivation or hidden intentions in the things that you do. Stick with heart throughout this. If you're sincerely following the journal journey, then you're bound to feel some discomfort over the topic. Everyone will. I do. You know what that is? Maybe it's the mind feeling like that. It's not you at all. Strictly mind. All that discomfort originates there. You know how it feels when you've been raised up to be a people pleaser, many of you, right? I know I was. I know how that feels, and the first word that comes to me is powerless. Your happiness is dependent, more or less entirely, on how someone responds or reacts to you, whether you please them or you didn't. Your self-worth hangs in the balance of the transaction. Again and again, you find yourself judging yourself. From heart, let's look at that more clearly now. Let us see that it is mind judging self. You see that clearly, and you're on your way to some serious freedom from interior hassle. But you've got to sincerely and really see this stuff for yourself. Having someone tell you like this and having mind think it sounds like a great idea, well, that's just BS. Mind won't like this one bit. So, be suspicious of a mind seeming overly compliant. Okay, we've taken a somewhat cursory look into the experiences of working to please and satisfy others, wanting to serve. A lot of people have slapped a spiritual label on this. We need to look at that carefully too. A lot of people that are looking at the Iraqi dinar being revalued and coming into some wealth that way, and they have all of these desires to give and share. All of that needs to be looked at with some suspicion. Things like that arrive from feelings of guilt over having more than your brethren or whatever, it just needs to be looked at. When our motivations are pure, things go well. When they're not, things will tend to happen in life in order to show us our impure motives hidden away under there. So we're really doing ourselves a big favor by untangling this knot as much as we can on our own. Let's see, there can be some sincere happiness come from successful transactions, but when it's mind in charge, that's all they are, is transactions. To be otherwise, they must generate in that much deeper place, such as heart. Now, being in heart with me as you are, get the sense of what it feels like when the urge comes up out of nowhere to do some little something for someone, such as help an elderly lady cross the street or carry packages for a mom with little kids in tow, anything. You'll know when it comes on the heart flow, for it won't be anywhere, and then suddenly it'll appear full-blown and sort of accomplish itself. You find it doing you more than you're doing it. It won't be like you thought of it and then did it at all. Only those in heart will fully understand this. We've all had these situations, these feelings, but they're very fleeting often, and when we're largely or entirely living from mind, we won't generally note them. They don't harmonize with mind. Or it's the reverse. Mind doesn't harmonize with heart, so heart things don't stick with it or to it. Something along those lines. So what I'm saying is, for all of us to be more self-observant and a bit more suspicious of the actions, the motives, the intentions of mind. Let's get off the surface. On the surface, sure, it looks nice to give $1 million donation to feed the kids or something, but look underneath. When it comes from the purity that you are, the divine aspect of your being, it will be perfect. It will do the most good. It will accomplish the most. It'll have the most power. Look deeper underneath to see from where these things arise. Seek out the hidden motivation, for it will be there, and it may not be easy to see. You have to be open. You may have to pull up some old belief weeds before even being able to see into self that deeply. I mean, that's how I found that things work. The hidden fact, or what mind would like to keep hidden, is that it will mimic the heart, trying to pass off its actions as coming from heart, when of course they don't. Now, I suggest we cut our mind loads of slack in this. No blaming, no criticizing. If we don't want to be criticized, let's not criticize. Actually, we could even pat it on the back, for it's just proving how smart it is. What else would you do if your job, the only one you ever had, and the one you loved, was about to disappear on you? You were about to be fired or demoted. Of course, you'd dance to a different tune if that could keep you in charge a bit longer. Sure you would. As I say, it's a mark of a superior mind, so be glad you have one. But still be that much more suspicious, mostly, of its motivations. We were given beliefs as little children that don't serve us now, that never really served us very well. They may have been the best of their day, but they're on their way out in this new world we're in process of bringing in. Let us not fear to get down deep into the soil of the garden of belief and root out all that gets in the way of our clear vision taking over. It's time to throw away the phony glasses we were fitted with as youngsters, the ones that make you see things like a hall of goofy mirrors, and get down into our heart vision for sure. And you can trust what you're going to see there. Remind yourself before you do this who you are. You are the divine. You have nothing to be ashamed of now, nor ever. No unworthiness, no shame. None of it's appropriate. Original sin, all of that. Out, out, out. Okay, but you've got to do this for yourself. Any and all actions that arise truly from heart are to be respected and acted upon in the right timing. Period. One needn't drop everything and run to do something right away. I'm not saying that. I don't find that heart generally acts like that, except for those immediate things that arise, just in general. Actually, I really enjoy sleeping on something I'm not sure of, sometimes for a number of nights. So don't let hurry be a part of your new life. Hurry is a sure sign of mind running things. And if you're comfortable with it, kinesiology, muscle testing, or I've moved to using the pendulum for that purpose, is a great way to have some deeper inner communication with yourself. Boy, it seems like I've really been on mind's case of late, doesn't it? Not sure what it's all about, but I know heart flow when it comes through, so I'm trusting it. Actually, it even feels like some additional mental clarity is entering the scene, but the funny thing is that it's coming largely from heart. Go figure, huh? We are divine, my friends. Let's remember that and keep remembering it. I promise it does help. Sometimes the help it brings is to shift your perspective just enough to open whole new vistas to your view that mind just couldn't see into. Sometimes it's to lend you that edge of self-confidence, capital S, that enables you to carry something off that you wouldn't have otherwise. One never knows. It's always a new now in every moment. Let us greet it with joy and open arms, my friends, whatever arises. Let's stop fighting life, and it will stop fighting us. Following hints and tips like those found in this journal can truly help untangle a lot of what's going wrong with most lives, or seeming to, for remember, everything brings blessing, no matter how it seems to be otherwise. And knowing that can really be helpful as well. Namaste. Okay, now that journal is over, but I've got some comments I find. This is from the 10th of July. It is now the 30th. This is 20 days, and I have changed and grown so much. But what I'll share with you here is that I wouldn't have if I hadn't journaled this, because you've got to bring it forward so you can see it, look at it, work with it. And it's never going to be the final anything, because there is no final anything. I no longer believe in beginnings and ends. It's cycles, it's things changing, and it's too big for this whole idea of beginning and endings. It's the moment, it's the journey itself. And journaling as a part of my journey has been perhaps the most valuable tool of this life. Good day.